Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Islamic Economics Series. Today, we're diving deep into a really critical topic, the efficiency of zakat distribution.
Now, as we all know, zakat isn't just a pillar of our faith. It's a powerful tool for socio-economic justice designed from the ground up to alleviate poverty. But the real question is, how well is it actually working, especially in a place like Malaysia, where the system is so structured?
You see, despite having these well-established institutions, there seems to be a disconnect, a gap between the zakat that's collected and the impact it has on the ground. So, is the money really truly reaching the asnaf, the people it's intended for, in the most effective way? That's the core question we're going to unpack today.
So here's our roadmap. We'll start with the fundamental promise of zakat and where the problems start to creep in. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty, the administrative hurdles, the real challenge of finding the truly needy, and the gaps in actually delivering the aid. And finally, we'll zoom out to talk about the bigger picture, moving from just aid to genuine empowerment and getting back to zakat's core purpose.
All right, first up, the gap between intent and impact. What you find is that while zakat collection can be quite efficient, the distribution side is often tangled up in challenges. And this doesn't just reduce its effectiveness, it can really start to chip away at public trust in the system.
So let's peel back the first layer of this problem and navigate what I call the administrative maze. These are the internal institutional roadblocks that create some serious bottlenecks.
And you know, these issues aren't separate. They're all connected. You've got this rigid bureaucracy that just slows everything down. Add to that a decentralized system where every state has different rules and it gets confusing fast. All of this is compounded by a lack of performance metrics and proper staff training, which means decisions can end up being subjective, not systematic.
This slide really puts it into perspective. On one hand, you have the ideal, a single, unified national system where the rules are clear and consistent for everyone. But the reality on the ground? It's a patchwork of different state regulations, different paperwork, and confusing processes that create a lot of friction for the very people trying to get help.
This brings us to what is, frankly, one of the toughest nuts to crack, making sure the aid actually gets to the right people. This is all about the challenge of accurately targeting the asnaf.
In the academic literature, this whole dilemma is boiled down to two critical mistakes. First, you have inclusion errors, which is when aid goes to people who aren't actually eligible. But then you have exclusion errors, and these are arguably the more heartbreaking ones. This is when the people who are genuinely in need get completely missed by the system. Both of these errors seriously undermine what zakat is all about.
So why do these targeting errors happen so often? Well, a huge culprit is the data. Many zakat institutions are working with databases that are old, fragmented, and just don't capture the real-time dynamic economic situation of families. And when your data is bad, your decisions are going to be bad too.
To fix this, there's a major push to change how we think about poverty assessment. The old way often just looks at a simple income number, which can be really inconsistent and misleading. The better approach, the one being advocated for, is a multi-dimensional assessment. This gives you a much richer, more holistic picture by looking at things like health, education, and housing. It leads to smarter, fairer targeting.
Okay, so you've identified the right people. That's a huge step. But now you have to actually get the aid into their hands. This is where we run into the operational and logistical barriers, what's often called the last mile problem.
There are a bunch of hurdles here. For one, there's no central system to coordinate everything, so you might get aid duplicated in one area while another gets totally ignored. Then you have the physical, geographic barriers. If you're in a rural area with bad roads, it's tough. This also drives up costs. And a really big one is the digital divide. Urban folks might be able to apply online, but that's just not an option for many in rural communities.
And this is what that looks like in practice for someone in a remote area. They have to register manually, then wait through a long verification process, and finally wait for a physical disbursement of funds. The whole thing can take weeks, and when you're in an emergency, weeks are an eternity.
All right, this leads us to a much bigger, more strategic conversation. Is the zakat we're distributing actually creating lasting, sustainable change? We really need to shift our thinking from just providing aid to fostering true long-term empowerment.
You can really think of this in two ways. There's consumption-based zakat, which is about immediate relief, food, cash, the essentials. And that's absolutely necessary, but the risk is that it can create dependency. Then there's the more strategic model, productive zakat. This is about giving people the tools for self-reliance, capital for a small business, equipment, skills training. This is the model that aims to break the cycle of poverty for good.
And that begs the question, how do we even measure success? Right now, the metrics are often just about outputs. How much money was given out, how many people received it, but that doesn't tell you anything about the real impact. It doesn't tell you if someone's dignity has been restored or if they've become more included in their community.
So let's bring all these threads together and think about the path forward, how we can get back to the true foundational purpose of Zakat.
When you look at it all, you realize these aren't just separate little problems. It's a complex web. The administrative issues affect the targeting, the logistical problems affect the impact, and so on. This means you can't just fix one piece. You need a holistic solution that addresses the entire system.
And to guide us, we must always return to our foundation. This powerful verse from the Quran reminds us exactly who Zakat is for. It's not just a guideline. It's a divine duty, a sacred trust placed upon us to distribute these funds justly and wisely.
So, the ultimate goal, the paradigm shift we need, is to move beyond just providing a temporary fix. It's about creating permanent, meaningful change. When we empower someone with the tools to become self-sufficient, we are living up to the true spirit of Zakat, helping them stand on their own 2 feet.
And that leaves us with the final crucial question we need to grapple with. How can our modern Zakat institutions adapt and evolve to overcome these deep-seated challenges? How can they truly harness technology, adopt better methods, and shift their entire mindset from simple aid to lasting empowerment? The future impact of this incredible institution really depends on how we answer that. See you in the next one. Subscribe, like, and comment.